on the cover, you are a very successful individual. But today, I want to talk about the moment where you lost it all.
When two lives are running parallel to one another and they both are deep sync and deep love with one another, and then there's a shift. There's a shift in what one wants and what doesn't, or the merging of two lives. It's very tumultuous, especially for women, because that emotional congruency is no longer intact in that fantasy that they created for themselves. What's really important for those that have hit rock bottom and those listening to your podcast is to realize there's time. And you have to go through this pain to get to the pleasure. You have to learn about yourself and really take time to rebuild in order to become that great person that attracts the highest quality partner possible. And that's what I talk about in my book. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that because I was going through what every other male has gone through in a breakup or a divorce, something that's life altering and changing, where emotionally you're not capable of dealing with this.
Welcome, everyone, to the Beyond the Cover podcast. My intent with creating this podcast was to provide a platform where men can speak openly about their journeys with mental health without fear of judgment while doing so. While I, the host, or you, the listener, may not agree with everything or anything that a certain guest says for that matter, my focus is not to decipher what is right or wrong. Rather, it's to gain a better understanding of why somebody thinks and acts the way that they do. And with this understanding, we will begin to make better sense of our own lives and the world around us. So join me as we open the books into these men's journeys and dissect the pages within. Today's guest is Michael Banovac. Michael, as you will hear, shares a story of somebody that has accrued a lot in his life from a financial perspective and success. Michael will tell us about how that is not everything and how it left him at points feeling empty. He'll talk about an incredible way to reverse engineer what it is that you're looking for. And I'm very excited for you to listen to this episode today. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Michael Banovac,
What's up, buddy?
To the Beyond the Cover podcast.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm super excited to talk today with you. You're a great friend of mine. We have had so many incredible stories that we have shared with one another. But today is going to be one that I haven't even heard, I don't believe. We talked a little before this, and we're going to jump into this deep, and I know that you're going to provide very valuable insight. So on the cover, you are, to say the least, a very successful individual in multiple areas of your life. One is real estate. I went on the website, your website. I did not realize you've done over 350 million in transactions, whether that be through acquisitions, through building, remodeling, or selling of properties.
That's right.
That is an astronomical number. And I mean, how many people are on the team that you're talking a small
My
group.
dad and I, that's it.
2 people, 350 million. There's going to be people in real estate that are, that's a large number regardless, but that is incredible. So it's safe to say that you have absolutely just destroyed it in that sense. You also have degrees in international marketing from the London School of Economics and also international business degree from Harvard, the Harvard.
The Harvard, yeah. I would say certificates. I wouldn't say degrees, but yes, I went to those schools.
You still went to those schools, and those are very prestigious schools, to say the least.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't enough, you're an author of a book that I finished actually just over the weekend. It's How to Be Irresistible to Men. And this is where you give insight to women on really how they can attract a high quality individual such as yourself.
Yep.
Or friends of whoever it is, but you give them the tools. I found it very interesting, the advice that you gave. That's a lot to do. You also own multiple properties. There's a lot more that I could talk about, but I start with all that to say that you've done a lot, and you're at the age of
35.
35.
Just turned 35.
Yeah. So most people would want to have one of those things on their, on their, for their reputation. You have multiple, and you're still going.
Yep.
But today, I want to talk about the moment where you lost it all. I want to get vulnerable. I know that most successful people hit rock bottom at some point or at multiple points. It's what they did in those situations and sharing those stories is what impacts so many people that maybe are currently at rock bottom. So take me back to that rock bottom moment.
The one that I think resonates the most with my story and probably the story of the listeners is COVID. You know, a lot of loss and a lot of destruction happened. I remember I was at home. I was at in Old Town Scottsdale, my cool little condo. And I remember we're starting to see the nightly news. And the nightly news is constructing this narrative where people are dying left and right all over the United States and beyond. And this contagion is spreading. And my girlfriend and I at the time are sitting there going, whoa, this is a big problem. I was telling her, I said, the real estate markets are going to crash. I mean, overnight, markets dried up. Real estate prices dipped. People didn't know what to do. And I knew one of two things. One, it was a great time to buy. And luckily, I was poised to buy. So I bought my previous to last property in April 2020. So that was a stellar move. And then also in times of tumultuous difference, especially in the community, when things are happening, you know, families are getting lost and you know, businesses are going down and all these things. It's a time of rebirth. And unfortunately, during that time, probably the biggest thing that resonates with you and your story and the listeners is my relationship. The person I thought I was going to marry and have children with, that just, you know, went to hell in a handbasket, for lack of a better word. And it's a wake up call, you know, because for me, you know, I wrote that book that you mentioned in 2017 as a catharsis for me. You know, I grew up in a childhood of divorce. My parents were both married earlier on, and they've both been in multiple marriages, and they divorced when I was 4.5. But the book was kind of not to repeat the same mistakes as our parents. And in writing that, I thought, you know, I can outsmart this. I can be better than this. I don't have to get married and have it lead to divorce, right? I understand the complexities of relationships far more than the most people. And in doing so, we think we're smarter than we are. And then you begin to realize that life has other plans, right? They always say, people plan, God laughs, right? And so when you're dealing with matters of the heart, you can be completely in love and enthralled with your partner and have all these connection points just firing on all cylinders. And then what happens is there's cracks in the veneer. You know, for me, about 1.5 years in that relationship, probably the most deep relationship emotionally and vulnerably I'd ever been in to that point, she wanted to get married.
Okay.
And I remember we're sitting next to the pool, and it's a beautiful evening. And she says, when do you think you're going to propose? Just out of the blue. And I thought, honestly, I don't know. It hasn't really crossed my mind yet.
How far in was this?
About 1.5 years into the relationship. Okay. And that put her into tears. You know, she thought we were on a different trajectory. And the relationship after that, I remember, wasn't the same after that. Because what happens is, and you could probably attest to this, when two lives are running parallel to one another and they both are deep sync and deep love with one another, and then there's a shift. There's a shift in what one wants and what doesn't, or the merging of two lives. It's very tumultuous, especially for women, because that emotional congruency is no longer intact in that fantasy that they created for themselves.
When she asked that, was that the pivotal moment? I mean, was that the end point of the relationship, or did that just put into perspective? You finally took a deep thought and said, okay, this is where she's at.
Yeah.
Where am I at?
I think it was the beginning of the end.
Okay.
You know, because what happens is, I think over time, I never lived with a woman before. And then a couple months after that, I actually moved in with her, and she had a child. And, you know, her child and I got along pretty well, but it was always a devoid. You know, you really don't know someone until you fully know them. And in living with them 24/7, you get to know all the little picadillos.
Everything that they do. Yeah. Like all the little, why is there hair on the back of the shower? Why do you put that there? Why do you drink all these half bottle waters? You leave them all out.
The sex appeal dissipates immediately because now you truly know the real thing. And so, and then what I realized, it became a honeydew list. You know, why don't you go do this? Take the garbage out. Do this. Do that. And I began to resent these commands, because before it was sexy, it was fun. It was, let's travel internationally. Let's get some plane tickets. Let's go have a great sexcapade in St. Bart's or in Italy or some crazy far away land. And it was very intimate. It was very intoxicating. It was a drug.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just wanted to get that hit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so what happened is when your relationship is only based on the next trip, you don't really have that strong congruency of what is needed to make the relationship work. And then you throw a kid from a previous marriage into the mix. It's a recipe for disaster.
So you ended the relationship.
I have a hard time saying that because in true reality, I think she gave me an ultimatum. And basically the ultimatum was, I want to get married or we're dissolving this relationship.
Okay.
And initially I'm like, don't put baby in a corner. You know, I'm not, this is not Dirty Dancing. I do not want to be told what I should and shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And so immediately I came back, right? And I said, no, I'm not doing that. Let's break up. Mm-hmm. Then I acquiesced because we go through kind of the 5 layers of, oh man, it's the 5 layers of, what do they call that? Not depression, but
grief?
Grief. Yes, grief. 5 layers of grief.
This is so weird that you're bringing this up.
Yes.
The next podcast actually was going to jump into that. But we can jump into it. It's very interesting.
Yep. Then you start to rationalize. Then you get angry. And then you do all these different things. And then you revert back. And then I thought about it for a month and a half. I had that knot in my throat. My stomach was, I couldn't see other people. All I did was think about her 24/7. I couldn't do my work. Like emotionally, I was destroyed. And what I like most about your podcast and what you're talking about to the audience is you can be a very successful person and you extolled a lot of my accomplishments. But deep down at that time, I was broken. I was alone. I felt like I was, emotionless. I felt like I was a loser. I felt like I was dumped. I felt like I was at the top and now I'm nobody. Who would want to be with me? And that was kind of the narrative circuitously I was being told from her, which I believed. It's kind of that, if you don't want someone as good as me, you're never going to find someone as good as me. And so what I realized was, I thought, okay, a month and a half passed. I'm going to go back to her and I'm going to acquiesce. Maybe I will get married. Maybe this is the right move. Maybe my guilt has overridden my logic and I should be doing. That's what I should be doing at this time in my life. So I went back and I talked to her a little bit more and I said, I thought about it. And I said, I think you're right. Maybe we should get married. And she said, she did the best thing she ever could. She says, deep down, how would that look? And I said, well, first of all, it would look like we would have a prenuptial agreement. And I would put everything in a living trust. And if we had a kid, all those assets that we made prior to getting married would go to that child, and you'd have a life insurance policy or something of that nature, but you wouldn't get my assets previous to us getting married. But once we get married, everything's 50-50.
Yeah.
And she didn't like that. She said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not signing a prenup. I'm not doing any of those things. And that was hurtful only because in my mind, it showed the cards that were on the table where if you truly love someone, you're going to make them feel safe. Mm-hmm. If you truly love someone, why would you care about the things that they did or the things that they had prior to being in a relationship? What's the angle? Yeah. And my feeling was, the absorption of expenditures and different things and having a husband would help ease the blow. Mm-hmm. And this individual was very successful. She was very financially doing very well at that time. So I thought, why would someone making several $100,000 a year need me to come in and start using my resources to take care of you when you have the funds to take care of yourself? Riddle me that one.
So you, in a way, felt like you saw her hand at that point and you started to question your worth because you thought, I thought you loved me for me, but now I'm wondering if you love me for my resources.
That's right.
And so that then from there, I imagine you started to have questioned your own self-worth and self-love.
Yep.
So that took you down the spiral to the rock bottom. Mm-hmm. Where did you go from there? This relationship, I assume that you drew the line in the sand and said, well, if you're not going to sign off on this, then that's it. Was that the end of it?
No, what it was, we had a dinner. I remember kissing her for the last time. I remember it was Chelsea's kitchen. I never forgot that. And I went home and I thought whenever I can't sleep or whenever I'm really distraught, I put pen to paper. So I inked her about a 4-page letter that laid out all my thoughts. It was a love letter of sorts. That was a culmination of everything that we felt or I thought we felt. And the relationship I had with her child, the relationship I had with her, the relationship I felt with her ex-husband, who I was probably going to be the second of, and it was a very cathartic moment. That's why I wrote the book, right? A catharsis, a sense of revelation. What did we learn from this process? And in writing that, I felt great. I sent her a bunch of flowers. I sent her the letter. Nothing. No response.
So the intention of the letter was to hopefully change her mind?
Change her mind and also give a sense of closure for me and a sense of response, right? I think when you love someone and you're with them for several years and you have a deep, meaningful connection, you kind of want an ending or you want a new beginning, right? It's kind of a rebirth. And for me, it was nothing, so that I think was even more traumatic. And here's what was fascinating. Couple months pass, I'm pandering, like a lot of men do, kind of sad, distraught. Oh man, I can't attract a girl. Girls aren't looking at me the same way. Well, of course they're not looking at me because my head is down. I'm slumped over. I'm depressed. I have this negative energy that's just billowing from my whole aura. And I never forgot this. I'm walking with a buddy of mine and he'll probably listen to this and attest to this, but I'm walking and my phone dings. It's a text message from her, the first communication point that I had since the breakup. And I kid you not, Clayton, I open up the phone, I open this thing, and right then and there, this bee lands right on my hand and stings me. Nope. I'd never been stung by a bee before my whole life, except in that very moment. Okay. And I thought, whoa, it almost gave me chills. I'm like, this is wild.
Yeah.
That tells me subconsciously, get out now and run. And what it told me was my friend said, hey, you're a great guy. I know you have good intentions, but you need to extradite this like a cancer. Cut it completely out of your life until you have done the work and have gone through the pain, the 5 stages of grief to rebuild. And that's what I did. I said, I care about you. I love you. I'll always love you, but I cannot communicate with you. I can't follow you. I'm blocking you on everything. And we will cease communication and conversation until I've done the work on myself. It has no bearing on you. It's just what I need at this time. And it worked.
When she sent you that text, what stage were you at in the 5 stages of grief?
Anger.
You were still in the anger. Okay.
Yeah. Anger, resentment.
Well, so what I thought was interesting was the 5 stages of grief. They actually, they don't have to be linear, but they can be for most people. 1 is denial, 2 is anger, 3 is bargaining, 4 is depression, and 5 is acceptance. Do you follow that order? Do you feel that would you put, because to me, anger, I think, can actually be pushed. I would put it even at 4 instead of depression. Yep. I think it's the stage right before acceptance.
Yep.
Can be.
Yep.
Would you place it at 4 or would you have said that you were maybe right beyond denial at that stage?
I think it was earlier on in the stage process. And the reason being, I think, is what happens is you try to rationalize it. What's really important for those that have hit rock bottom and those listening to your podcast is to realize there's time. And you have to go through this pain to get to the pleasure, right? You have to go through pain to get to heaven. You have to learn about yourself and really take time to rebuild in order to become that great person that attracts the highest quality partner possible. And that's what I talk about in my book. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that because I was going through what every other male has gone through in a breakup or a divorce, something that's life altering and changing, where emotionally you're not capable of dealing with this. I mean, I would wake up certain days and have a conversation. And when her name got brought up, I would start crying. I mean, that's an emotional depth that I wasn't aware of, you know what I mean? And it was healthy because what it did is it got me back to the basics, right? It got me back to, okay, I got to reread my book. I got to do exactly the steps that I teach people on what to do. And then I thought the best revenge is success. The best thing is not look at it as revenge, but also look at it as an acceptance and also as a they did you a favor. Because in the end, if it wasn't meant to be, it won't be. If it was meant to be, it would have been different. And if someone shows their cards, take it as a gift. Take it as something that you can learn from and rebuild from and come back stronger. I hit the gym. I lost 20 pounds. I reread my book. I really started focusing on mental health and focusing on making sure that you're doing things that bring you pleasure and bring you confidence. And then you start to put yourself out in the world and you start getting your stride back, and boom. Within 6 months to a year, I was in another long-term relationship, which I wasn't expecting. And that person was someone that gave me the confidence to say, yes, I can. Yes, I can attract this quality of person. And fast forward, actually, about a year into that relationship, I ran into her at an event, which was wild because I'm decked out in a tuxedo. She's in an amazing dress. We look like we're 12s out of 10s. And then she comes up to me and the energy just got sucked out of the room. Right. I don't know if you've been in that situation, but it's that deep pit energy where you feel like this ominous presence is around you. And again, it had nothing to do with her. It was the narrative I had within myself. It was this pain that someone bringing up her name, someone bringing up her energy, someone bringing up her aura, someone telling me about someone she was now dating. I hadn't gone through those 5 stages of grief to be at peace and realize that's a gift. Thank God it wasn't you. Thank God you weren't the second divorced husband. Thank God you weren't single with a 2-year-old and 2/3 of your net worth was gone. That was the gift.
When she walked up to you, what were those initial feelings?
Numb, that numbness of, the oxygen gets sucked out of the room. You're tan, you're looking good, you're healthy. And then immediately you have that Blanche Casper ghost look where you're just like, I can't believe we're in this situation. You know what I mean? Where someone tries to placate and be kind and interactive in a social setting, but there's nothing more than you want to do is yell from the top of your lungs and get out of there as quickly as possible. But social dynamics dictate you can't.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, was it a sense of discomfort, essentially?
Very much so, yeah.
If you were to bump into her today, would it be the same feeling?
No. It'd be a much more peaceful feeling because I went through those 5 stages and I came out the other side, and I have the maturity within myself not to place blame on her, right? Because it takes 2 to tango. I was just as much at fault as she was, except how I coped with it, my ego and my self-discovery couldn't cope with someone not wanting to be with me, someone not wanting what I wanted the way I wanted it. And so, it makes you stronger. It makes you better. And I think it made me a better partner in the future and more about, attracting and being true to yourself. You and I have these conversations all the time where there's a big disconnect on how women communicate versus men, especially when it comes to ways of the heart. We're lucky guys. We're attractive. We can attract attractive women and all those things. But at the same time, you got to make sure that you're honest, you're straightforward, you know exactly where they're coming from. And half the time we don't. As men and women, we are just playing the roulette wheel, rolling dice, hoping that the outcome is going to come out the way we want it. And many times it doesn't.
You bring up so many good points. I think being open and honest, a lot of people think, well, we need to be that towards that individual, but it all starts within. And to piggyback off that, I love that you brought up ego, because I think that that's something that differentiates a low quality versus a high quality man, a mature versus the immature. When you had that breakup, while you were in that relationship, do you feel that you had an unchecked ego, or did you feel at that stage of your life that you had a pretty good grasp on your ego? Was it in control or was it not?
I thought it was, but looking back, it wasn't. It's that childhood self-belief of grandiosity and narcissism. You're riding high, you're making big money, you got the beautiful girlfriend, you have all the real estate, you're doing all these things. I think you have a sense of grandizement that isn't realmed in reality. and then you get a gut punch, and I mean, I think that's part of life. There's always a sense of rebirth, and I think life is a game of moments. I talk about this many times where just when you think you're doing great, there's going to be a side curve that hits you that you are not expecting. And it makes you relearn, recalibrate, and understand, hey, I'm human. I make mistakes. I was talking about this the other day with a friend of mine. I said, I have been dumped. I have done the dumping. I have been with the most beautiful women in the world. In fact, I was, seen with the girl who is top 50 most beautiful women in the world. And I have also been in the doldrums where I couldn't even scrape together a date if you gave me $1,000. So I know both sides, right? I understand being the man and being no man. And I think it's important to have those polarities because as a man, a truly mature man, you have to understand you're not going to be on top all the time, but you got to keep getting up. When you get punched and you fall down, you got to keep getting up and keep trying. Never stop. Never stop trying to go after what your dream is. And it's different for all of us.
Do you think that it takes going into the valley or rock bottom to really get a handle on your ego?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Is it the only way?
I wish it weren't the truth, but I think based on our similarities and our stories, it is. Because I have a feeling if I met you during your fame or height and all those things, we probably both would have been two arrogant assholes that wouldn't have connected.
I don't like to use absolutes, but when it comes to you talk about ego sacrifice or ego death is a terminology used. I don't like the term ego death because to me I realize that it's an endpoint, and if there's a death, there has to be a resurrection because ego is essential. When you're in the valley, what's the one thing that's pulling you together and says, "Hey, dust yourself off and stand back up. You fought through this once, you can fight through it again." That's your ego. That sense of self. So I don't like the term ego death because it's not that you're supposed to get rid of it for good. I think you're supposed to take it to the cliffside and hold your ego over the edge and say, I'll drop you right now. But I'm not going to because I need you to be here. But just know who's in control.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the way I like to see it. So to me, there's an ego resurrection, ego rebirth. You said the word rebirth. I find it fascinating how people use terminology, especially when you have like-minded individuals. I recently wrote on a board, Project Rebirth. That was my goal for this year, was to be reborn again. And I wrote in my journal that the previous version of me died about six months ago. Well, really what died was my ego. Because I went on these experiences, played in the NFL, became the Bachelor, and I thought that those accolades and accomplishments would carry me through. And the best thing that ever happened to me was my ex-girlfriend told me, she said, you could take away your height, your size, your accolades. I don't care about any of that. What I care about is what's up here and how we're going to grow together. You've been given a pass for all of your accomplishments in your life. Women have looked past the lack of emotional maturity, but I won't, and neither will a high value woman.
Whoa, that's deep. Yeah, that's true.
It smacked me upside the head. Our relationship was already at the tail end at that point, but I could basically hear that, and my ego wasn't attacked because I knew that relationship was over with. But that's when it clicked. I was like, she's right. But I needed, my ego finally allowed that to come in.
You got to put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're with, and it's very important, that construct of treat others how you want to be treated, right? Look at others the way that you want someone to look at you. I think that's really important. And a lot of people don't do that. They're too self-absorbed. They're too much in their own idea of being self-grandized and important and all these things. But in reality, they're not. We're legends in our own mind until we take the time to look at someone else truthfully and give a helping hand or extend something that makes them better. I think that's a big one.
So how did you, so going to the valley is really the first point at which you get a grasp on your ego. What are some other ways that men can get a better grasp on that? Are there other avenues or the things that you did?
Mhm.
How did you basically also build yourself back up?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
So the big one, and I talk about this in my book, is like attracts like. You must become your best self to attract the best in others. And that is threefold. One is your body. It starts in your body. I mean, you're in great shape. I'm trying to get close to you, but I am in as good a shape of what I feel I am, right? Then it transcends into mental. The mind game that you tell yourself, the self-talk, becomes our reality. If you really look in the mirror every single day and you're like, I am the most handsome, the most amazing, the kindest, the best, and I will transcend and give to this world to the day I die, you will have abundance in your life if you truly believe it in your DNA. If you have negative self-talk and you're like, I'm not that attractive, that guy's taller, that guy's richer, that guy's this, that girl's that, you're not going to have the results that you're looking for, period. Absolutely. And then last but not least is that spiritual component, which you and I connected on in a lot of ways. And that doesn't have to do with religion. It has more to do with what do you believe you were called to do with the time that we have on this planet? Is it self? That's a pretty low end deal. It's not really going to do much for the community. Or is it more? And through those relationships, through the embodiment of being with a great partner or a great guy or girl or great friendships like you and I have, you're able to become more. You're able to give more. You're able to transcend yourself and extend out more.
So you focus on mind, body, and spirit. And I absolutely agree with you. I think, physical is the first aspect. Men are physical beings in general. So most of us can get into the gym and start taking care of our health. On the nutrition side, food is fuel. What you put in your body is going to, you have your gut is your second brain. So feeding your body, nourishing it adequately. Then you have the mind, the mental component. You mentioned positive self-talk. That's something that people can start to look into. And how did you go about it? Did you, for positive self-talk, were you writing down in a journal? Or were you speaking it out loud into a mirror? How did you practice positive self-talk?
What I did is I really did three different things. I believe in manifestation. I believe in your dreams, and the same dreams reoccurring is your higher self telling you this is possible. So when I kept dreaming about my Ferrari, or I kept dreaming about the house that I'm building, or I kept dreaming about dating a supermodel, or I kept dreaming about writing a book or helping other people, that was a vibration level that was beyond my reality at the time. It logically made no sense, but I knew that there's a reason I keep delving into these dreams. There's a reason I keep looking online and going, whoa, there's something here. This is more. And in doing that, I wrote my obituary. I had my full construct down, and then I reverse engineered some of the steps it would take to achieve that dream. Because when you're young, you think, how is it ever possible to afford a $200,000 car? That logically doesn't make any sense when you're making $30,000 or $40,000 a year. The math doesn't add up. How can you attract a Victoria's Secret supermodel or someone that every guy on this planet finds attractive? Well, there's ways. You got three things, and I think this actually ties into the audience. Number one, you got to get in close proximity to it. Whatever it is that you want, you got to get close to, right? If you want a beautiful woman, you better be around beautiful women. If you want a beautiful car, you better be around beautiful cars. You want a beautiful home, you better be in and around beautiful homes. That's step one. The second thing is learn. Anything that's important to you, learn, read, construct, absorb, and become the knowledge basis of a woman, women, men, cars, planes, trains, trips, your home, your business, whatever that is, you are a knowledge source. So people look at you as an authority in that construct. And then lastly, once you have the knowledge and once you're in close proximity to it, you will be given an opportunity. You will have met someone that will be the gateway to the next level. It's kind of like Mario Brothers. You ever play that where you hit the mushroom and you jump up?
It's my favorite video game.
Right?
Yeah.
So you hit the mushroom, you hit the coin, you jump up to the next level. And that's like life, right? You go from this level to the next and you become more confident in your reality because you're pushing the barriers of what is real.
Mhm.
And then once you manifest your dream and that manifestation becomes your reality, then you throw the golden ring even further. And now the dream that was once unattainable becomes commonplace. And now you go to the next level. That's anything in life. So it's a constant progression up of trying to learn. Like, I don't know if you ever read Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald.
I haven't yet, no.
Great book. But basically in it, Leonardo played him in the movie. He says, my life, old sport, my life has to be going like this, meaning it has to be in a linear progression up. And as we know, life is like a heartbeat. It's up, down, up, down, up, down. But if the heartbeat is in an upward trajectory and it's going up while you're going through your valleys will be much shallower and your highs will be much higher, pushing you to that next level of, metanoia almost, which in the Bible is, the awakening or a sense of self-awareness.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you dropped so many nuggets right there. I think what's so powerful is that I want to emphasize a few things here, or reemphasize them. Reverse engineering, because you're so right. So many people will say, I want to get to that level, but they look at their level and they look at where they want to be and they see this giant void. And that'll stop a lot of people right there alone, just feeling the void. But you said it perfectly, and I absolutely believe it. It's reverse engineer it and start trying to say, okay, but where's the step before that? Where's the step before that? And if you ever get hung up, then start trying to find people that are just maybe a few steps above, but first write it out.
100%.
And then start to be adjacent to it, and you'll just feel the energy. And over time, you'll start to embody it. Because that's the biggest thing I see is I have these largely ambitious goals. I came out to Scottsdale, and people out here do things differently than Missouri.
Right.
They move at a speed times 1,000.
Right.
So I thought that I was a big fish in a small pond
Right.
in Columbia, Missouri. Not when I came here.
Yeah.
I went, big fish, big, or small fish, big pond, really.
Right.
And I guess I started there because I look at myself as like a big fish. I think you have to. It's that self-love, that confidence, but big pond. And I thought, I didn't even know that was attainable.
Yeah.
So then I started just kind of, okay, let me just like sit next to these people and see how they move. And then you absorb that energy and then you start to become it.
Yep.
That's the way to do it. You've given so much incredible, just practical steps. And that's the important part. And progress is progress too. It's not that, I think what hangs everybody up is that everyone thinks I have to do this tomorrow. No, just because that person did it in a year doesn't mean you have to.
Can I leave you with a quote?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so the ending of my book, which you remember, is I think it's really resonates well with the audience. You're never the best version of yourself you want to be. Rather, you are the lowest version of yourself you're willing to accept. What will you accept in your life? And the moment you take your acceptance and your expectation to another level is the moment that you achieve your dreams.
I think that is the best way to end this. But just so people, if they do want to find the book, where can they find the book? Where can they tune in and tap in with you?
They can go on Amazon. You can look up Michael Banovac. You can follow me on Instagram at Michael Banovac or at Millionaire Date Doctor, YouTube, all over the place. So
yeah, they have to try to. They don't have to try to find you. They can. It's hard to miss you.
Yeah,
and you've done so many incredible things, Mike. Thank you so much for this conversation. I've learned a lot. I know my audience will. You're incredible. And I just appreciate your time today.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.